or it didn't work.
I
traded him like a couple martinis.
Yeah, there you go.
Hello, Kyle.
Just
They sent it back so they can't fix it.
But when I got it back, it's working.
I know I had. Work up to my 100.
Really?
Yeah.
How can you beat that? Yeah.
You swing that 100 times already?
Yeah, I got a push down. Like I said,
Not a day,
standard.
but I'm up late.
The only reason I got it is for laterals, you know.
I always, I
Equal
go to
distance
driveway,
on lateral.
I do use that. I got a stretch stick first. And
I
I
don't love it.
swing it from both sides.
That's the only reason I got that range finder, so that I can do equal distance.
You know, I got a rangefinder, but I never take it to a tournament day, so I don't. I mean, I'll eyeball. I have players to. All our players have it anyway.
But no, I wanted one. And I got just a standard.
Yeah.
You're
You're still using the old.
I don't see anybody.
Pressure selector you got the Kendrick Gent. It's still steady enough, I can still get it out of that flag.
Yeah, well, you know what, I think crazy go low and work their way up to the green. You know what I mean? Because I think if you go like start up here, you might have a tree in the back and pick that tree. That's what they said, so I don't know.
I was in a match with two super seniors.
The kid that he got,
This guy
JT
twice.
Thomas, he lived with us.
Twice through the match, got
Yeah, we're real
yardages.
close with him and his family.
Yeah, you had a tree in the back of the green.
I know.
And then
Yeah.
two other.
The wrong thing.
Yeah.
They shot the wrong thing and it goes flying over the green and.
So, my daughter was there
When you're shooting
just
distance,
now, and his wife,
if you wear
he had just taken off, they just started to fly to Vancouver.
if you don't pick up the right focal point when you're shooting,
305.
if you're looking at a tree or something. I was just traded.
Yeah.
You get another 10 yards.
So
the weather's getting better.
I think what you should do is go low and then work
they
your
like
way up
walked
to
up
the
on the lane
green
and said,
until you hit the
"You're
flag.
done." They said, "You're done."
Yeah, there you
You're
go.
going
Yeah.
down.
He was on it, he was on his way where?
Vancouver.
Yeah.
So
And he had to
Well,
wait
he's
till he
the
got
one
there.
with the front edge
He
right,
could
you
wait to
know?
fly back.
to Vancouver. And then they were supposed to have a flight, but somehow the flight didn't get.
Yeah.
He didn't get on a flight or whatever, so spent the night in Vancouver and flew in yesterday. So New York to Vancouver to Tampa. Yeah.
He should be a little tired.
I changed it, and they play tonight.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to watch. So then he gets one. But you know, it's weird because it's supposed to be there. So I go
Yeah.
to Baker's app, right?
Whoops.
And with their 30 minutes. Just
Yeah,
stands are off.
airmail.
There are no stands left on, and he's gone like never existed. Off of the radio stuff, and it was about 2 hours later. And he was already put in.
You know what the middle is.
I
So
think
many
it's wild to watch how it all happens. And they said, they always like to say,
It's like,
don't worry about it.
Still think the
that's not that critical to me, you know?
You know, you're better off looking at the marker and saying, oh, let's see, it's about five yards north of the marker.
But we'll put it all together and get it shipped down there. And then they'll
years,
place
years
it
ago. Right on the
when they get there, which
And
gets
his
there on
caddy
Sunday.
then was giving
And
him
she's-
yardage in half yard.
Oh,
That's
I
not
was like,
What?
7 months
Great,
pregnant.
Oh.
yeah, it's like,
That's why my
really?
daughter was there. And I helped her start doing
That's what our
already
pro
because
always
they
set
thought,
up at, you know, Jake
year,
said,
not gonna make the playoffs this year. and Now he could be
how many people using these things are gonna hit within 2 yards?
Yeah, I started getting texts. Can I be invited to the
Yeah.
Stanley Cup
Those
party?
folks are much closer to the
Yeah.
yards, and the half yard might make a difference.
Yeah.
DUI is granted, you know, you may want to try to get the half short because that relies on that tree.
Like Justin Thomas's West shot the other day.
Yeah. 18.
I thought he was gonna put that in
In
the hole.
Detroit, if there's anybody
Saw
but
it
Kenny
again,
Allen,
I saw it bounce, and I thought it was gonna slide by and stand back there.
guys have
Yeah.
ever been, especially when.
He thought it was in for the Eagle, though. Yeah.
Well, he's
That was
getting
amazing.
some very good.
Wait a minute. I'm not getting it.
See, I think he was the.
Yeah.
No, no, wait a
Oh, I
minute.
gotta get a new pen, I'll give you this one here back.
He's been playing really, really well. That's his second place this year.
But he's the assistant for Carolina. He's the head coach of their Maryland Lake team, but he's assistant GM for Carolina.
Yeah.
He was pumped.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it was.
Speed.
Well, heck, there. Thomas hit one, what, 342?
Something like that, yeah.
342 yards.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, look at
He played full.
he's taking stock, checking out who's here.
Yeah, the 342.
Say
hello.
Hello.
Hello. There's Chewy going the wrong way. Oh, it's late. And I had to walk for 4/4 of a mile.
4/4 of a mile.
There's parking spaces.
They have a shuttle across the street, Mike.
Right?
There's a shuttle across the street.
I asked for it already. Chris Carter, wait for me to bring him a card. Want Uber number?
Yeah.
All right, good to see you. Is that your first one? Get an Uber?
No, I was sick the last 2 weeks. I've been every one except the last 2 weeks I was sick.
Check.
No, I'm 100%.
You're good.
Oh, yeah.
ever seen him here before?
No.
Never.
What's your name again?
Neither.
Yes, sir. Right.
George.
Yes, sir. Craig, is that a new guy there?
Hey guys, I want to apologize for Rover's time for you,
Yeah.
but I
I
did
went in
make
for
up the
exercise.
ones
I
you
was that
requested.
close to
All
going to the
right.
hospital. No.
You got
Is it
one.
pneumonia?
Not disturbed.
And then for the big 36 holders
And bronchitis.
that you
You can't
requested,
mess around with that stuff.
here you go,
at our
see?
age.
I didn't
No,
know.
thanks.
Do not wait for
Quiet. Idiots. This week,
That's a little bit worse. So my wife.
You gotta get in my house, you got every little size we made.
Providence is extra. Providence is much.
Quiet, you got
He goes like this. X-ray.
Okay.
And I had bronchitis on this side.
Just don't stay.
I said, that close. This is quite a crew with some.
Yeah.
What do you say, Tony?
When I need it, flew, everything. And the following Wednesday, I went in. That's why I wasn't here for 2
Whatever
weeks.
happens in here,
Whatever.
not my doing.
Took
It's like
X-rays
when we played
again,
hockey in college. What's done on the road stays on the road.
I tried to. The first
Doesn't have
ones
to
I
be on the
came
road.
with-
I wish our patching crews would work that way.
Last week.
Between yesterday and today.
So Jeff, I had to go to 45. I had to go to Chesterfield for a client. I think the Uni's open. You know, last Michigan mile, 275 was on there. Rallies when we loaded all days.
And it probably was in better shape than concrete.
Really,
road.
it was great. I always saw it. I was listening to one of the videotapes. Two balls. You're right. The side.
It took me from my house an hour and 11
But I did, like I said, I
It
did
took
try
me
to do it
15
last
minutes to
Wednesday.
go to last week. Because I was doing about 5 hours an hour. I tried to.
All I wanted to do was.
I
mean, I was stretched out for 2 days. Like Wednesday.
There were 2 hours.
Yeah, I was even wanting to see the
Road repair, right? So we took Maple all the way to Telegraph. We get on the Telegraph, and we
went
just
to,
got past the Orchard Lake exit, bang! The road crew on the left 2 lanes. 2.5 to 5 miles. We got scrapped out of that.
He's got
I put a lot of stuff in my
We were out the last 2 days, when we heard that there's supposed to snow tomorrow night, we turned around and checked, we're staying out there the other day. We drove south.
Even with all the slowdowns.
Like on Wednesday.
So it's a good way to go.
Yeah. So anyway, went to him and he, boom, bango, first thing, X-ray. He didn't mess around.
Yeah, we had lunch with somewhere one time.
Don't you want to perform a keystone correction?
Match play, I don't do these anyway. I don't do these match plays anyway. I did one last year, that was it.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah, it was. It was pretty good because it was real flat to walk up and down.
It's gonna be flat at CCD this year too.
Son-in-law is.
But to go to Detroit, it's gonna be flat.
They're putting in.
Yeah,
And of course, you know, the seniors, you get
you
to
could
ride.
use the rest.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I was with those girls up in Saginaw, man, they were running. Those kids, you know, they're like, you know, 19 years old, and I'm going.
I know he was alive when he said that. He was about one of the elephants, and that's his cool.
We gotta wait for Ken. We gotta wait for Ken.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I swear, I guess so. Westerman.
I really think that you saw that really stand out.
Keep up. I feel like it's late. I'm out of
Yeah,
breath.
yeah, you got there, you have the swing too.
When he took his hat off, he comes
It was on for 2 minutes.
That's, you know, I went Monday, I wanted to go to this club that I went yesterday.
Probably.
Monday, and
He's definitely something you can't.
got a big bucket like that. I don't know about halfway through it. That's it.
Find out.
Yeah, I went by Susan Lund, I think, Monday.
Maybe he'll come by.
Club out yesterday, so, you know, I don't know if it's- But the coupon was gonna run out on third.
Are they over there?
So, anyway.
The facility change or what? They talk about the change of the office.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, that's Whatever you want. Whatever you want. Really cheap. If you like, you can go over this. You can start with the book first. The rule.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started here.
Oh, well.
All right, thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I know it's, I'm sure some people that aren't in attendance out playing golf today. It's so nice out, but sooner rather than later, we'll all be able to do that. So. But today we're gonna talk about match play, and specifically we'll cover a lot of the rules that go over it. But then Craig brought up a good idea last week to kind of go through our match play guidelines that we give to you all for our match play tournaments that we do. So we're gonna start with that to just walk through these, and then if there's stuff in here that we don't quite understand, we'll cover those rules during the presentation today. So again, this will be updated for the event that you're at anytime that there's a match play event. So we do quite a few match play events. Some like our Michigan Amateur, our biggest event of the year, and then others like our net match play that is a little bit different in terms of what your role is out there. Whether you're an actual referee or if you're just an observer of the match. And so anytime that someone is designated directly to a match, they're going to be the referee. But then for some of our net match play event, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but on those we usually assign 2 or 3 matches to each official, correct?
In the first round, we have
Right.
to, because we don't generally end up with enough individuals to cover all matches.
Right. So in that case, that they wouldn't be a referee for a particular match, but they're an official observer out there for those matches. So a good rule of thumb, and obviously we want to do this in stroke play as well, but it's a little bit more intimate setting in match play when you're walking with a group. If you are assigned to a specific group, to just go over and to introduce yourselves, tell them your name. Obviously, let them know if they have any questions that you're there to help them. Also, thing here is to make sure when you're walking to stay near the group, so that if they do have questions that they can ask you and that you're accessible. I mean, we don't. If you're physically able to stay with them on every shot, that's probably ideal. But if there's a way to cut off some walking and you want to be 50, 20 yards away from the player, that's definitely fine. Just be close enough so that if they do have a question, that you're there to help them out with that. Before you get started, you want to make sure that they've got 14 clubs in their bag and that they show the golf ball that they're going to play to not only you but also their opponent. And then this third point here. So this is when you're a referee. So this is when you're walking with the group or assigned to a specific group. As a referee, you must act in any breach of the rule that you observe or is reported to you. So that's something important to tell them at the get-go as well, is to say that I'm going to be your referee. Anything that I see, I need to make a ruling on or need to resolve. But that's important to make a difference between if you're looking over a bunch of groups versus if you are tied specifically to one group. Because an observer is not necessarily the way that it's worded in the book is they're not they don't need to act on a breach of the rule. In that case, it would be to the players, and then the players will get to the whole making a claim process, but the players would be making the claim, and then at that point in time, as an observer, you would jump in there and say something.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
I have a question about this point. What about teeing off from outside the teeing ground?
So if you're a referee of the match, my suggestion would be to say something so that they're playing from the correct tee or behind the tee markers as they need to. As an observer, I think in that case you would just let it go and let the players decide that. I don't know, Craig, if you.
Yeah, there's a difference of opinion on that. Some people feel since it's not a breach of the rules to tee outside the tee marker on match play, some people feel the referee should not really step in. However, I would prefer to avoid any recalling of tee shots. I think that would tend to not be a good situation to be in. It's just going to produce some stress between the players in that match. So I would tend to prevent that, just like you would tend to prevent players from playing out of turn. And that's my interpretation, and that's what I encourage other referees to do that are assigned to a match. Now, if you look in the definition of the referee, you will find that if you are not assigned to a specific match, there are only 3 instances where you can step in. Otherwise, you are not allowed to step in. The players need to file the claim, and then you would be there to help settle the claim if that's the case. The 3 instances is Rule 1-3, which is
They agree to waive the rules.
Agreement to waive the rules. 6-7, which is undue delay, and 33-7, which is ethics, bad sportsmanship. Yeah, breach of conduct, bad sportsmanship. So those are the 3 instances where you would be allowed to step in and intervene as an observer, and you're not assigned to a specific match.
Okay, thanks.
And so in terms of this 4th point here, so you're going to tell the players that you'll announce their scores at the end of each hole and the status of the match. So typically at the end of the hole, when you're walking, you'll say, Mr. Reading 4, Mr. DeSenza 5, Mr. Reading is 1 up. And you'll use kind of that terminology, either 1 up. We never say who's down in the match, just who's up in the match. And then if the match is all square, then just say that the match is all square.
If the players don't want you to do that, you don't have to.
Right.
Because I had that with Harris and Zolster one time.
Yeah, if you know, if there's no spectators out there, just the players and yourself, and they say, yeah, don't forget that. Just double check it every so often. I would say I'm going to do it every so often just to make sure you understand what the status of the match is, because you're the official scorekeeper.
Right. I would say that you would say that. Maybe you don't announce it at the end of every hole like loud, but you should, at least my thought is that you should say that to them, so that if there is any discretion or any,
just to make sure the status of the match is clear.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, you wouldn't need to shout it out to the heavens. You could just tell them, hey guys, I had you for the 5 and the 5.
They told me, they said, we know the status. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's not usually Zilstra though. It's Ian and John French.
John French, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what they want, I mean, those guys. But yeah, I guess I would probably think differently for like the men's AM or a junior event, as opposed to like the senior or super senior where they know.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, when making a concession, the player should make it loud enough for you to hear. So this is something that you definitely want, and we'll put it in our starters notes, but something that you'll want to go over with the players before is that concessions need to be loud so that everyone can hear. And a couple of years ago at the Solheim Cup, there was an incident that there was a putt that thought it was conceded, but it ended up not being, and it created the whole thing, and it actually ended up helping the U.S. team win, I think. But so it worked out in our favor. But always a good practice to have those concessions be loud and clear. And if they can use the word, conceded, that's great, because another issue that you come across is when you use that's good. And some people say good, like good shot. So just to avoid confusion, if the player can use conceded or that putt is good, something along those lines to make it clear that they're talking about that next shot and not how impressive their previous shot was, to avoid any confusion. So as Craig mentioned this year, you're going to keep the official scorecard. In match play, there's not an official scorecard that the players have to sign. You'll just keep the card. They don't need to sign it. You'll just record the state of the match. Either you'll call it in on the radio, or you'll bring that scorecard to Eric or Ken or Ted or myself, whoever's there that day, or whoever's at the scoreboard, so we get those results up on the scoreboard and on the website. So it's here, stay up with the players opposite them, be ready, available, but inconspicuous. Again, we want to be close enough where they can answer questions, but we don't want to be, in their way, so to speak. So I like to stay with the players and be as close but not as close as possible, if that makes any sense. Especially on the tees. I know I like to be there on the tee, to make sure no one's teeing off in front of the tee marker. But again, if you can save some steps by cutting off some distance, that's not a problem at all. 8, we've kind of already talked about this, but just prevent rules infractions whenever you can. So as a referee, you can get in there and stop that. As an observer, you're probably going to just sit back and just let it happen and then deal with the claim when it comes up. But if you are the referee, definitely want to prevent the rules infractions when you can. So if you see someone about to break a rule, just like we do in stroke play, if we can stop them from doing that, that's good officiating.
So then as an observer, you're not allowed to do that.
As an observer,
if you're kind of responsible for 3 holes, as Tommy said, in the net,
right?
They have to call you to help settle a dispute at that point. Okay.
Yeah, you just kind of sit back and wait at that point. Unless it was one of those 3 things that Craig said. Right. If you see someone taking a divot out of the green because they missed a 2-footer, then you can step in and say something. All right, we need to fix this. Referees are not caddies or caddies. Either caddies. Referees are not caddies to either player. So leave the flag and the bunkers alone. Again, I think this is good, great advice for 90% of our match play events. If our 14 under match play event that we do, if you want to grab the flag for the kids, I don't see any issue with that. If you want to help break the bunkers for someone, go for it. But typically, if there's caddies there, or if there's if the player is able to do it themselves, let them do it. But we really don't want to be seen doing it, especially like at our men's amateur or women's amateur. We don't want our officials to be tending the flag or anything like that. Make the players or the caddies do it.
I got a question on the unsportsmanlike conduct. It's all or nothing. Basically, as you said, you see a competitor take a big pivot out of the green or something, or whack it unsportsmanlike. You have to make a decision as a referee. You can't say you lose the hole or you.
Well, in match play, you could.
Or not, right?
Well, first of all, there's always a problem with. We had a player playing in the Michigan Am last year, 2 years ago, maybe, who used a lot of foul language. Started out, and you let it go a little bit. Then you should step in and finally say, "Listen, there's people around. Next time I hear something coming out of you like that, I'm going to assess a penalty. In match play, it's loss of hole."
Okay, so you can step in and assess the penalty.
Yeah.
Takes his glove and whacks it down on the green or something like that.
But I would always make sure the player had an adequate warning and not issue it first time out.
Right. Like the second time.
Yeah.
Well, I think everything within reason. I mean,
it depends on.
Someone was on the 18th hole and they just yelled out, "God," and just did like 4, and it's loud for everyone to hear. I mean, I would say you're done. See you later.
Yeah, or something really extreme like throw a club at another player.
Right. Exactly, But I mean, if it's just frustration, like Craig said, I mean, usually it's best to warn them and then.
But you can't assess a loss of hole penalty as a referee.
You can assess disqualification after the loss of hole penalty, but the loss of hole penalty is first.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can do. I think you can do one or the other, right?
Well, you can do one or the other, but you do the loss of hole first, and then if it's severe enough with the sportsmanship, you can disqualify.
Well, 1-3 is disqualification. If you want to look at 33-7, I think there's some leeway in there, isn't there?
I think there is.
It basically says that it defaults to disqualification, but the committee can.
You may impose a penalty disqualification, but you may waive it.
Or a loss of hole. So there's a decision in there, I believe.
Yes, it's the penalty of disqualification may in exceptional individual cases be waived, modified, or imposed if the committee considers such action warranted. Any penalty less than disqualification must not be waived or modified. If a committee considers that a player is guilty of a serious breach of etiquette, it may impose a penalty of disqualification under this rule.
And before any referee issues a DQ, you'd want to make sure you contacted the official in charge. Had some discussion about that.
In other words, you see the card
Rover, Ken Hartman, Kyle Wolf, the official in charge, the GAM. The GAM representative.
I was just trying to see if there's any
I don't see it. I don't see it just saying you want 2 strokes but I think it's in the conditions or the index somewhere where you can basically to modify the penalty of a disqualification means either 2 strokes or 2 strokes in stroke play or loss of hole match play.
Right.
So
33-7/1 says only the committee as a whole has the authority to waive or modify a penalty of disqualification. The referee or an individual member of the committee may not take such action. So you'd have to consult the entire committee before you DQ the guy.
Right.
You could give him the loss of hole penalty first, and the second time, if you want to DQ him, you'd have to call the committee. And
when he throws the club at you after that, then you.
Yeah, if he tomahawks something down, sure. I don't think. Yeah, it's in the local rules, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever. We'll figure it out. It's in there somewhere, but maybe it's in 34. But yeah. So in that case, you are allowed to modify the penalty down to the loss of hold in match play. It's not a DQ or nothing. But again, just talk with someone before you do it, because we also want to make sure that JW might issue a loss of hold penalty, but then two groups ahead. If Jerry saw the same thing and didn't say anything, we want to make sure that it's uniform across all matches.
Yeah, we do as officials need to communicate more across the radio with what we see out there. So there's more sharing of information about the types of penalties we're imposing, that they are consistent. And again, this way you also avoid mistakes that are maybe potentially being made out there. And just a lot of times we just need to have more sharing on the radio of something that you're talking to a player about, just so there's clear understanding of how to proceed. Call anybody. Call someone.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken, I got the phone.
All right, let's see here. Number 10, never touch the player's clubs, equipment, ball. Let them determine nearest point of relief, measure, mark, lift, and place. So that's a good advice for match play and for stroke play. 11, be nearby whenever a player gets the ball in his hand or lands in a questionable area. Otherwise, keep your distance. Kind of talk about that one. Number 12, don't get the string out every time. Eyeball who is away if you can. So a lot of times, I think someone was talking about this earlier, if you're not sure, a lot of times I'll just ask the players, hey, what'd you get when they shot it? And then they'll say 157. They'll ask, what'd you get? 158. Okay, you're away. And if they both get the same number, then you can either flip a coin. So if you have a coin, it's always a good idea to have a coin with you, or you can just make the decision and say you're away. Because we'll cover then your decision is final once you made that decision. Here we go. Make sure you have a coin. So if we are equidistant from the hole, we need to decide who's flipping a coin. Honestly, I would never flip a coin unless it was a meaningful putt. If it's out in the fairway, or maybe it's the 18th hole of the match, I would. But if it's like hole 2 of the match, just say you're away, so that we can keep going, so we're not slowing down play by flipping a coin. I forget one of the USGA championships. They which one was it? Maybe it was the USAM, but one of the officials got the hook out for the flag, and the announcers were just making fun of him because he could barely bend over and get it, and he dropped it, and they're like, oh, 5 minutes later they figured out who was away. Just if it's not an important putt in the match,
Easy money, no?
Exactly, or just decide. He's wearing red. I like red. You play first. But if it's the 18th hole of the match and it's important, then yes, we need to measure out and make sure the right person's playing first, because it could make a big difference in the match. I mean, I guess people could argue that on the second hole, is it any different on the second hole versus the 18th hole? Probably true, but just don't be that official that takes 5 minutes to determine who's away on an 8-foot putt that may not be that important. Okay, so approach player with, how can I help you? When the ruling is over, say that the ball is in play and walk away. So we talked about that in the first week. That's a good practice for stroke play, but again, same thing in match play here. If the player does have the question, come over and say, how can I help you with your options? And then once they're finished with the procedure, once the ball's dropped, all right, your ball is in play. Always a good way to start and stop. All right, 15. Suggest to the player that he not touch the ball until he decides how he will proceed. So again, this player might be on the cart path and they want to take relief, but we just might want to tell them that, hey, leave the ball there until we decide where we're going to go with this. 16, ask questions that can't be answered yes or no. How would you play the stroke if the cart path weren't here?
Yes.
Announce the 2-hole scores at the end of each hole and the status of the match. So we already talked about this. Some there. The one thing we didn't talk about was if the match is dormy. Certain people don't like to use the term dormy, and I can see both sides of it. But basically, what dormy is it's from the Latin to sleep, and so when they created the rules, this term was used when a player is up as many holes as there are left in the match, and so
In regulation.
Right, in regulation, and then the people that are against using dormy for our events where the match continues on beyond 18 holes don't like that because the match is not actually dormy. Because the match will continue on. But if it was an event where there was just a half point, like they do at the Ryder Cup or something like that, in that case, dormy is. I don't think certain people would have any problem with saying dormy in those cases. But we don't. I don't think we really officiate any events on the GAM that we have. Yeah. So we do 3 events, but we don't have officials at those events. The referees at those events.
Just say you're up 3 with 3 to play.
Right, exactly.
It resolves the issue.
But without every year, I'm sure you'll hear on the radio, match 5, player Smith is 3 up through 16 dormy or something like that, and then certain officials' blood pressure goes up when that gets said. But yeah, so if you want to use dormy, great, but technically, dormy doesn't exist in a match that goes beyond 18 holes because the match is going to continue. It's not. I mean, I guess technically it's dormy, but it's not really. Anyways,
If you want to use dormy, you can say, Mr. Anderson is dormy for the stipulated round.
Yep.
Because our round is 18 holes stipulated. So he's dormy for that. That way, you won't get Mick Kildy to breathe down your back.
Dormy in regulation.
The truth.
You were going to name
I
names.
was trying to protect.
Come on, it's pretty well known. And besides, just we all love Mick's quirks, so. He's down there in Point of Vallarta.
Yeah, he's down there on drugs.
I don't think he's on the call, so we're safe for now. He might get back to him.
He's got to pay for those cars somehow. Right? down there doing some stuff. So. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? 18. It's up to you whose turn it is to play. So since you're at the green, you can usually do this using string, the flag stick, or pacing in the fairway. It just says, in this case, at the end of the day, just once you decided, players cannot dispute it. Just be decisive. You're away. A lot of times, again, like I said before, I'll just ask the players what they got when they shot it with their rangefinder. If they're not using a rangefinder, then just say you're away and go. Exactly. Let's see, and then here, so typically when we're walking with matches, we'll ask for updates every 2 holes or maybe every 3 holes, and depending on how important the match is, we may want to update every hole on the back 9, or maybe it's the final of the Michigan Amateur. We might want to update every hole, so that people can see that online that aren't there in person, and when we are communicating as well, you'll hear how the other matches are going on the radio, which is of interest to people. And then if you're comfortable on your phone, you could always look it up on your phone too. And that goes for scores in general too. We always do our best to get the scores online. So even if it's a stroke play event, you could always pull up your phone to see what the lowest score in the clubhouse is or something like that. And same thing for match play. I know when I'm bored walking down the fairway in my match, I always look to see how the other matches are going. So I'm still doing my job. I'm doing it while I'm walking. When there's no golf being played, Craig, don't
walk into that
don't worry.
tree or bush or into the bunker.
Yeah, as long as it's not a bunker or water hazard, I'm good. Water hazard would probably be worse. Bunker, I think I'd be like, so it's really safe.
Walk into the water hazard with your cell phone.
Yeah, right, exactly. I wouldn't be able to watch it though, or to see how it's going. And here, just 19 again. Report the match results as soon as possible to the scoreboard. Usually over the radio. You can call into scoreboard, or you can call. From our person or from our standpoint, we have at the Mission Man, we'll have our interns. So if you guys wouldn't mind, it is kind of nice if you call them by their name instead of scoreboard. I think it's a nice thing to do. But if you want to call in scoreboard, that's fine as well. But it will be a GAM staff member typically on the other end of that getting the updates. So just call in the scoreboard or call their name, whatever. But yeah, typically we do that every 2 holes.
But it was 3.
Huh?
Every 3rd hole.
Every 2 or 3. It just depends.
Depends on the size of the field and how
Yeah.
much work that individual is doing at the same time.
Right,
He's on the
exactly.
scoreboard.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want the scorer to fall asleep.
Right, exactly. Or it might be, Ken might be doing everything that day because he might be the only person there. So in that case, it might be 3. Or if there's weather, we might move to 3 instead of 2 to clear up the radio. All right. So state of the match adjustment penalties. So here the following penalties are adjusted or are how do I want to say this? Assessed as state of the match adjustment. So not loss of hole, but adjusting the match after the hole is completed. So penalties at the penalties that were discovered at the hole are going to be taken care of after the hole is completed. So if someone's carrying more than 14 clubs, if they breach the 1 ball rule, if they use more than 1 caddy at one time, or if they breach a local rule regarding transportation, that is a state of the match adjustment, and that's going to happen after that hole is completed. So if we find out in the middle of hole 5 that the player has 15 clubs in their bag, they're going to continue to play out hole 5, and then they're going to be deducted 2 holes from the state of the match after that point, because you get a maximum of two holes deduction for carrying more than 14 clubs. If it was on the first hole, they would just get a 2 or a 1 point or whatever you want to call it deduction.
Is everybody clear on how you would adjust a match? You want to go through some examples, like say, okay, so player A and B are playing hole number 5. Player A is 2 up, and then player A during the 5th hole, it's discovered that player A has more than 14 clubs. Well, player B is going to want to win a hole right there. He's going to say, okay, I won this hole. It's important to know that you tell the players, okay, we're going to complete this hole. We're going to play it as is. At the conclusion of this hole, after its completion, then we'll adjust the match. So player A is 2 holes up going into 5, and say he wins 5. Now he's 3 up. So now because he's carried more than 14 clubs, more than 1 hole, but at maximum of 2 holes, now he's only going to be up 1 hole. So a player could be going from 1 up to 1 down if you're adjusting for the max penalty. But it's always make sure the players know that they complete that hole in normal fashion. Nothing happens during the play of that hole. It all happens after they settle the play of that hole, and then the results are posted for that hole. Okay? And the reason we added this year is because In Egypt Valley last year, we had a really messed up situation. It wasn't handled properly, and it was not good.
What happened?
What was it? Can you tell us what this?
Sure, I'll tell you. We had a match. It was I think it was a semifinal match, wasn't it? Andy Matthews and kid from Eastern Michigan, good kid, left-handed kid. Tyler Lewis. He was 2 down going into 14. So during the play of 14, we had a ban against local transportation in Egypt Valley. Some of the tee boxes were way up high, and the players were allowed to ride back up there, but caddies were not. So this particular day, Tyler Lewis's caddy rode the cart up there with the player. Well, then Andy Matthews files a claim during the play of the 14th hole, 14th or 15th, I forget which.
That's the 14th hole.
14th?
Yep.
Well, Andy Matthews thinks he wins the hole. So we finally got it situated where we thought it was clear that, no, you got to complete the play of the hole, and then we'll adjust the match after that. Well, Tyler Lewis actually won the 14th hole. He should have gone back to 1 down, and then the state of the match gets adjusted. He loses 1 hole because it only happened 1 time. So then he's back to 2 down, playing into 15. But somehow the results got skewed, and he ends up being 3 down. And I don't know how that happened, but it was it didn't really cost Tyler Lewis a match, but I mean, it ended early because he was 3 down with 2 left to play. He should have only been 2 down with 2 left to play. So it's
You didn't use the tee? With the tee where you put one over here and one over here?
Oh, yeah, for penalties and strokes.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
The tee bar.
Yeah.
The T diagram.
Well,
It's not a double entry ledger there.
it was we had some confusion with the walk-in referee for that match, and it was. I'll take responsibility for having it happen that way, but
It happens
Oh,
out there.
you were
People
I wasn't the referee. No, somebody else was.
people make
Was it
mistakes,
even
but
bad?
I think we all learn from
Hopefully,
it.
we'll all learn from it. I think we strive for excellence. We're going to have some errors, but we strive for excellence.
Sure.
So they were arguing during the hole then? They didn't-
Andy Matthews thought he won the hole. He wanted to stop play right then.
Oh, they wanted to stop before he.
Yeah.
He thought he won that hole.
He didn't finish the hole.
He didn't. He didn't want to finish the hole, but he ended up finishing the hole. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that affected his play during the hole, but he ended up losing that hole. Tyler Lewis actually won it, which then helped him because then he actually
If he thought
picked up the hole that he lost.
Pick up the ball, he does lose the hole, right?
No, picking up the ball is only one stroke penalty. You got to replace it.
18.
So he was 3 up, then he went from 3 up to 1. Because
He was
2 down,
He was 2 down.
right?
He lost to go to 1 down.
1.
I mean, Matthews was 2 up. He lost 14. He goes to 1 up, but then the match gets adjusted. Now goes back to 2 up.
2 down. But somehow.
Matthews was 2 up.
Somehow.
Matthews.
Yeah, right.
Somehow it got back to 3 somehow, which never got really announced over the radio. I don't think. Otherwise, we may have caught it. But I don't know.
Some people think that it's the match was adjusted 2 holes. There's no such thing as a 1 hole adjustment.
Well,
No, there is.
there's a 1 hole adjustment for this case. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, he thought he was saying
He thought it was 2
maybe a
holes.
2. I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, that could be.
It could have been maybe thought 2. So anyway, it's just important to remember these penalties, especially make sure the players play out the hole.
So, Craig, what would happen? Let's say that we have our example with the 14 clubs and the player. It's on. They just got done playing the 5th hole, and well, actually that's not an example. They just got done playing the 1st hole, and they're walking to the second hole, and they discover at that point is it still a 2?
I think on
adjustment,
clubs,
or-
if they've completed the hole, I think clubs carries over to the second hole. Now, caddies not though. More than one caddy. If you look at clubs,
Should be a 1 hole adjustment, right? Because he didn't do it on the second hole.
Page 67.
Second hole, no. In the middle of the second hole?
Middle of the second.
Be two.
Middle.
Be two.
But it's between two holes? There's a decision on that, I think, somewhere, isn't there?
67. He said,
I have a note here. It says during the hole of just completed, I put different. Okay, here we go. It says, wait, no, that's seating. So here, at the bottom, match play or stroke play under the penalty statement.
Yeah.
If the breach is discovered between
What
the play
page
of
are you
67.
Oh.
If the breach is discovered between the play of two holes, it is deemed to have been discovered during play of the hole just completed, and the penalty for a breach of Rule 4-4A or B does not apply to the next hole.
Okay, so that's only the one hole
That would be a
then.
one hole.
It's on the first hole. If they hadn't put a ball in play on two.
Right. I think where it carries forward is the caddy.
Six.
Yeah, during caddy, page 91. The breach is discovered between the play of two holes. It's deemed to have been discovered during the play of the next hole. And the penalties applied accordingly.
That's not
would they make it?
Yeah, why would they make it different? I know,
Is it not consistent?
Yeah.
That's what makes this stuff so hard.
I know. You know what?
Consistency.
One is the previous hole and one carries forward to the second one. You gotta remember which one's which, I guess. It's like,
Are they changing it? You know?
I don't know.
We'll have to look and see. Hopefully they are, but you never know.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
I think maybe with the caddy and this is just my guess, but with the caddy, if you think about it, if I switch caddies walking from the first to the second hole, that caddy could give me some information that I could take advantage of on the next hole. Whereas if I have a 15 club in my bag, if I don't use it on the next hole, I don't really gain any advantage. So maybe
Good way to remember, yeah.
maybe that's the way to kind of think about it, is that I could gain information from having that caddy between holes that I can't from having another club and not actually using it.
Right. It's a good way to remember it.
Craig, in that situation with the player being able to ride but the caddy not, why wouldn't the decision been made to have them both?
Why was the decision made to not allow them to both ride?
Right. You're going to let the player but not the caddy.
Well, I think it was just a matter of the
Kind of
number
just
of,
like this rule, kind of like.
I think it was just a matter of the availability of cards too, you know?
Well, that was
You got
about
the
it.
driver of the cart, it's his cart, and then the player is the other guy sitting in the cart. You don't want anybody,
You don't want,
Hanging on the
you
back.
don't want caddies riding along the
and
back.
many clubs don't permit, or, you know, and we've tried to enforce that, you know, never have a caddy hanging on the back of your cart.
Right, you know, you see that on TV though, all the time.
Right.
For playoffs.
Yeah, that's a PGA.
Yeah, that's a
That doesn't
PGA.
count.
But
PGA also plays lift in and cheat too.
We do that clear at the golf course when it's suspension of play too.
Yeah.
I would talk to Ken about it. I mean, I agree.
To
with
me,
you.
it makes
I think it's kind of silly that you wouldn't allow caddies to ride a cart. And I think especially at the AM, I mean, you can't say that they didn't have enough carts. We didn't allow any carts out there, except.
Well, it was enforced from the start of the tournament, so everybody should have had
I
good knowledge
understand,
of it. I
but
mean,
Yeah.
just one.
Yeah, it wasn't anything new. By the time you get into the second or third round of match
Right,
play, it's been going on for several days.
I mean, obviously, there's a reason for it, but I would talk to Ken about it because, yeah, I mean, the committee could just say that players and caddies can ride, and that would be. I mean, we allow caddies to ride when we shuttle them between 9 and 10. So what's the difference between having them take a cart up to the 14 tee?
Or driving them in, or
Right.
driving them back on a lost ball.
Sure. So I mean, I can see why they would, or why we would want to just restrict the players so that the caddies stay ahead and it's not slowing down play and that they can four caddy or whatever.
That was the idea. The caddy was down the fairway. He could move the player's ball immediately.
Right.
And especially if it crossed out of 14 into 17 where the other was when it crossed over that hill. caddy could already be over there, making an attempt to find the ball, or waiting for the player to tell him he wants him to find the ball.
Sure.
But that was remember that had a slight left-hand dog leg. It had trees right.
It was a tight hole,
point.
yeah.
It was a tight hole. Where was that?
Egypt Valley.
Egypt Valley.
So,
Hmm?
one quick question on match play. Get up to hole number 2, competitor A hits the stride, competitor B goes over. Oh shoot, I got 15 clubs. He hasn't started the second hole.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
Play has started.
play has started on that hole. It's a match, so it's just the 2 players.
So as soon as somebody tees the ball, that hole's in play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's once the ball's teed. I think the ball has to
I
be
think the ball's
struck.
got to be in play, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be struck, so the ball's got to be in play. And had he noticed it before the guy hit his
Get
tee
the
shot,
ball, right.
and started the play hasn't taken place.
And that applies in the first hole as well. There's a difference in the first hole.
First hole.
About having 15 clubs in your bag.
Yeah, or just
That's the place where it gets goofy about your approach.
I thought it was the side
You don't get 5-stroke penalty.
on at least on the first hole.
But if they haven't struck the ball, so the play hasn't began yet.
But Kyle, if you show up after your tee time, but it's not yet your turn to play, you still get a penalty.
Yep.
Sure. But I don't get a penalty for carrying 15 clubs in stroke play if I haven't teed off and I have 15 clubs in my bag. Even if my playing competitors teed off already, I don't get a penalty until I tee off.
Match hasn't started yet.
Asking and
Yeah, stroke play, his play had to
Wilson
start.
had that one, right?
That was the second hole.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's in here. It might be in my slide deck. Let me see. Well, you guys keep looking for that. I'm going to switch over to the presentation.
Okay, actually, guys, there's a decision on this. I don't have a page number, but it's 4-4A/11.
It's on page 79.
Oh, for match play. So we were wrong on a match play. If player, according to Mike, we were wrong on your question.
No, I was right.
No, I know. I mean, we were wrong, giving you the wrong answer on your question. Yeah.
It's once the side starts, right?
Yeah.
So if your partner teed off in a 4-ball match play, you'd be screwed. But in a singles match, it's always when the side tees off, not the other player.
So that would be the same for on the first hole. Then there'd be no penalty.
I would say so, yeah. Also, it's good to know also there are penalties, and you'll find this in match. Where do we find that? Where's our side penalties? Where like excessive clubs by one player is a penalty that affects both partners.
It's back in
It's a side penalty.
29 and 30, I think.
Yeah, it's probably another 4-ball.
So what you were telling us before is wrong, right?
About
So
player A had not
match play.
teed off yet on second hole, and player B had.
he hasn't teed off. A has.
B's got the excessive clubs.
Right.
He can declare it out of play before he tees off. Now he's only one hole.
Correct.
Yeah.
469. 467.
Right. There's there's side penalties for clubs and caddy.
And then it also has penalty to the side, and then anything that's not would be directly tied to the player.
Yes, yes.
So if Craig and I are playing a 4-ball match, if he has 15 clubs in his bag, we're gonna have our match adjusted by one hole at the end of the first hole, even though we may use my ball for that.
Yeah, okay.
Now, if Craig uses a non-conforming club, then no matter what I do on the hole, I'm going to be DQ'd.
Right.
And so is Craig.
That's a disqualification of the side.
Mm-hmm.
But if going down the list here, but if Craig is on time and I'm late, Craig can still play the hole, but I'm only disqualified for being late for that hole. So we would use Craig's score on that. If we were playing alternate shot, then Craig would be screwed. But if we were playing just 4-ball, then we'd be okay. So we would use Craig's score on that hole, and then I could join back in on the second hole.
Yeah, if it was foursomes instead of 4-ball.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. If it was foursomes, if I'm late, so is Craig. Well, Craig can't hit the next shot, so we would lose the hole.
Lose the hole and walk to the next tee.
Right. Exactly. But if I was late, we could just use Craig's ball. If it was a 4-ball, Craig's ball would be the one that we would count, and I could jump back in on number 2.
Yeah.
And try to help Craig, even though I probably wouldn't be able to. But.
Craig, you always carry the truck out there weight.
Yeah.
So I have, let's see, let's look at something real quick. I have a note in my thing about. Okay, so on a related note, I have here decision 8-1/25. And this might help us understand it a little bit better here, but advice given on request, penalties, and various forms of play. So that's on page 141. And in singles match play, if A asks advice from B, it is irrelevant whether B gives advice because A lost the hole as soon as he asked. In 4-ball, in a 4-ball match, A and B versus C and D, if A asks for advice from C and C gives advice, A and C are disqualified for the hole, but the penalties do not apply to their partners. So B and D would duke it out on that hole. In stroke play, if A asks for advice from B, a fellow competitor, A incurs a penalty of 2 strokes, and then if B were to give the advice, he would also get a penalty of 2 strokes. So I think that's kind of a good decision to look at and kind of get exactly how certain penalties are applied to either the side or to the specific player. Well, I guess in this case, a specific player. All right, we'll start with Rule 10, order of play. So as we've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but really order and play, we're going to specifically talk about match play, but for stroke play, order of play doesn't really matter. However, if the players can't decide, I think we talked about this last week, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, but if the players can't, decide, or the person that's away doesn't want the player closer to the hole to play first, we're going to default to whoever's farthest away is going to play that next shot in stroke play. But in stroke play, we want to encourage ready golf players to play quickly, but also do it so that it's not offending the other players in the group. So we're going to talk specifically about match play here when it comes to order of play. So when starting the match, the order of play is going to be determined by their seed or their draw. So the 1 seed is going to play first versus the 64 seed. Or if as we move on in the bracket, it's basically I guess maybe that statement's not correct. So it's where they are in the draw. It's not necessarily their seed. So if the 64 seed beats the 1 seed in their next match, that 64 seed is going to play first. So it's all based on where they fit in the draw, in the bracket. And then once we get started to play, we all know this, but the side that wins the hole will continue to have the honor and play first from the next team round. And we'll continue that throughout the match.
We had a situation last year where during the senior, again, these seniors, you gotta love these seniors, you know. We had a senior match play, and player A and player B are playing away. Player A has the honors to the first 7 holes because he won, say, one of the holes in there. So player A loses the 8th hole. However, so player B has the honors at the 8th hole. However, player A plays first. Player B, not paying much attention, tees up second, and they play the hole out. And at the end of the 8th hole, they have that hole. So now player B realizes that he should have had the honors at the 8th hole. So he asked the referee to if he should tee off. Well, the way I read this 10-1, it says if a hole is halved, the side that had the honor at the previous teeing ground retains it. So unless player B asked for the honors at the 8th hole or stopped player A from playing and took the honors, he can't get it back once after completion of the 8th hole if it is halved. So that's how I would that's how I interpret this rule.
Well, just,
Are you following what I'm saying or
yeah,
not?
I'm following what you're saying, but I don't know if I agree. Yeah, because it says the player that had the honor. So whether they played first doesn't really determine if they had the honor. Yeah.
Well,
but I think either way is fine. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's how we interpret it there.
I mean, I would say that the side that had the honor. So even if the guy played, if what in your case player A or player A played first, right, when he wasn't supposed to.
Right.
So my thought would be that player B still had the honor and he just didn't play first, and he would have it on that next hole if they determined it.
Shouldn't the referee jump in on that?
Yes.
They beat at the honors?
Right.
He should have, yeah. The referee should have jumped in.
Yes, he should have.
Get the order of play correct. He should have jumped in.
But an observer can't do that.
Observer cannot do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Right. But the opponent could have recalled the shot too.
Correct, yeah.
If he had realized it at the time.
Right.
So what do you say on the next hole? I don't agree.
Well, I'm saying that on the 8th hole, or actually on the 9th hole, if they both have 8, the player who had the honors on 8 retains it on 9, regardless of the fact he really shouldn't be having the honors.
Well, you're saying the player that teed off first. I think.
Well, isn't honors the same way as he was teeing off first?
No, I don't think so.
No.
You didn't lose the honors.
That's why I bring it up. I wanted to bring up some discussion because it's kind of.
I would say, and it sounds like this side of the table is in my camp.
Yeah, I agree.
So you think that so the player, if they continue to have holes for say 3 or 4 holes or continue to be halved, that player B
He never lost the honors.
never should have lost. He can get the honors back because of something that happened back on the 7th hole.
Yes. He never had the honors.
I didn't win.
think
He was
so.
just playing out of turn.
It was bigger than the other.
Player A played out
And you
turn,
could only
player B
call
didn't
him
recall
on
the
that
shot.
at the completion of that hole. Once it's gone past, that stands, correct?
I wouldn't think so.
Well, yeah, he.
Once the player tees off and it was not recalled immediately, he loses the right to recall anyway.
Right, right. That's what I'm saying. You have to call it before you start the next hole.
Or even before he makes his next shot.
Right, okay.
The ability to recall.
Right, right to
To
recall.
make a claim, it would be before the first shot and the next hole.
Right.
But to recall the shot, it would have to be before
For
the
the
next
next
shot.
shot.
So I just wonder what everybody else thinks about that.
Recall doesn't apply.
But whatever we decided, we all got to do the same thing. If we're the tournament, we don't want to do that really being done here. If people find out about it, say, wait a minute
If I
now.
got the honors and I've got to use the John, can I defer the team off first to the competitor?
You can for speed of play, but we don't like to have you do it. I mean,
He's got to wait then?
Yeah, when you go to John.
Well,
Or you.
there is an exception.
There is an
There
Hey,
is an
Kyle?
exception for order of play
Yeah.
that you can allow it.
In the definition of honor, it says the player who is to play from the teeing ground is said to have the honor. I thought it said who did play. I'm sorry. That doesn't really clear it up.
Well, let's see. I mean, that's always good to get. So
You can.
the player who is to play first from the tee is said to have the honor. So it has nothing to do. It has. I mean, to your point, Tony, or maybe not your point, but it doesn't say who played first. It is who is to play first. So I think that honor is still that person, even
He's the
though
one
the
that's
other
to play
person.
first.
Okay, well, maybe I'll ask the USJ.
I mean, the
Yeah,
other
they'll clarify.
The other thing, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if it's not the exact next hole, if it happens 3 or 4 holes, then is it different?
How many holes do you play? How many holes do you allow that?
Right.
But USJ is pretty quick to respond.
Just something that really kind of bothered me this whole winter.
Interesting observation.
We should call him right now.
You got anybody?
No,
Take that under advisement.
no,
Text Chris Mills. Go ahead, keep.
Oh, Jerry
Jerry
just made a point. He says, I never liked to tee off first anyway.
All right. So here, just getting back to this, during the play of the hole, it's going to be the person that's farther away. We all know this. However, there is an exception in best ball or 4-ball match play. The side has the option to choose who wants to go first. So you'll see this a lot of times on the green. Someone's putting short 2-footer for par, and another person's got a 30-foot birdie. The 2-footer will go first, get that in, so that the other player can give it a run at it.
Let's foot forward.
Yep. Or that person that is putting the 30-footer is just a really bad putter, and they want to make sure they got par so that he can coast it down and not worried about 3 putting.
So you did or form.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, here, so when it becomes known that the original ball is not to be played as it lies, and the player is required to play a ball as nearly as possible at the spot from which the original ball was last played, the order of play is determined by the spot from which the previous stroke was made. So if someone hits the ball out of bounds, the order of play is determined by where they previously hit that stroke from, not where the ball went out of bounds at. However, when a ball may be played from a spot other than where the previous stroke was made, so a lateral water hazard as an example, or an unplayable ball, where they can take 2 club lengths or go back in line with the flag and the ball, or they can go back where they last played from. They have the option there. In that case, it's going to be determined, the order of play is going to be determined from where the ball, where the original ball came to rest. So a good example of that happened to me 2 years ago at Eagle Eye on the 9th hole, and so it had two players, and the first guy hit his ball, and he was going for the green in 2, and he hit a 3-wood or some kind of hybrid or something like that up in the green and blew it 10 yards, 15 yards left in the water, crossed back almost where he hit it from, but probably like 30 to 40 yards in front of where he hit it from. The other guy who wasn't along the hitter laid up out to the right, and then so what they did, because I didn't know, was that the player that hit the ball in the water, he dropped where he last crossed, which what ended up putting him farther away from the hole than this person that laid up. But in reality, we should have used the point where his ball was in the water and let the other guy that laid up play first before he hits it. Even though
order of play.
Right. Even though he had a farther shot, it still should have been the other person's turn to play, because from that where the original ball was in the water, he was farther away than that point.
Well,
So, does that make sense?
well, the guy in
it's
the
not,
water,
it's not the
his
margin,
ball would
it's
have
where
to
the
be
ball
closer-
went in.
closer to
It's
the
where the
flag.
ball
I
is.
think
It's where the ball lies to determine order of play.
unless unless they are required to go back to where they last played from.
True. Like for a ball out of bounds or
Yeah.
out of bounds or stroking distance. Yeah.
Right.
If the ball was in in a hazard, it was in the middle of the lake.
Doesn't
let me-
matter.
let me
It
try to
says
draw
where the
that.
ball came
It's
from.
where it ends up.
Yeah, I
Original.
understand. I would have never got.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
This ball is still
No,
closer
that
to the
makes
flag than the other guys got to hit first.
Yeah,
It
you
don't
wanna
matter
go by
where
the
his
margin.
original ball went across the margin of the hazard.
It doesn't make sense. Sure. Fred taught me that.
So number 9 at Eagle Eye is kind of like this. You got the
Water all
water
the way down below.
all the way down here, then you got the green here, and then you got a cross bunker here, and then a cross bunker here. So they hit their tee shots right here. I don't know if this is back, but let's just say they hit their tee shots here. I don't know, whatever. And the player hit was going for the green, and they hit their shot here and ended up here, and the flag was right here.
But where's the margin where it crossed?
That light line.
Doesn't matter where it's
I can't
crossed.
see that
It
line.
doesn't matter where it crossed. So
Right.
let's
Where it
just
came
say it was
from.
right there.
I know it, but I just
know-
want to see
I know
where it
this
is.
isn't- I know this isn't a great picture, but
You got to hold the pen up, and the top bottom's got to be higher than the tip, or you drain all the fluid away from the
yeah,
thing.
okay,
So if you
sure. So this player
even if
here,
it makes a little noise,
You just,
I think it's
the
just,
pin is open.
so this player here, I should probably put B. A. So player B laid up to here.
yeah.
So
So
let's just call it 100 yards away. But then this guy hit it in the water here, but he was 15 yards away. Well, since his ball in the water was 15 yards away and he was 100, player B was 100 yards away. Should have played first.
yeah,
Even though the guy dropped right here.
yeah. That's irrelevant to where
Right.
determine who's away.
Again, that's only in match play.
That's only in that. Yeah.
There's some clear there.
I'll get it later. All right.
You can turn it back. I turned it so the camera can see.
Oh, okay. So that, I mean, that I think is at least for me, it didn't make any sense coming from a player standpoint and the guy, and you know, had I told the players that, they probably would have looked at me and been like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sure most players would be like, no, like that's not right. I'm going to play anyways. And you know, so sometimes you may get challenged out there.
So as a referee, you step in?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was the referee there, and you know, had I known this, I would have told the players. And let's say that, for example, they said, "Oh, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing," and they go ahead and play anyways.
How did you
I don't care.
figure this out after the fact, or?
I just reread the rule and just looked at it and said, because I wasn't sure. I knew there was something in there about that, but I wasn't sure. I knew that had the player not dropped the ball, they would have like the guy 100 yards would have been away. But the thing was, he walked 20 yards forward and dropped the ball, and I thought after he dropped it that it was from where the ball was, and not and that reference point didn't really matter. But even if they drop it, it's still from that original where the original ball was.
Let me give you an example. How about on a short par four? A player A taking an iron goes out there and he's 100 yards from the green. Player B is 270 from the green. He goes to the driver, puts the ball pin high, but in the lake. He's supposed to wait for the guy to go all the way up to the fairway and hit his second shot before he hits his second tee shot.
No.
Yes.
In match play.
In match play. Okay.
Well, provided that ball in the water is closer to the hole than
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Now, can I lead up? Say, just hit the ball.
Yeah, but if he's in the water, he has other options. But it's his turn to play if he goes under option 1.
No, that's not the case.
The only way it's his turn to play is if he plays under stroke and distance.
Well, even then, it's not because he has options. I mean, if he puts a ball and hits it, that the other player can recall that shot because it's not his turn. It's all based on where that ball is in the water. Even if he plays under stroke and distance, it's not his turn to play.
Plays that shot.
Yeah, in your example, the guy that hit it over the green or next to the green in the water is still closer, so the guy back here has to play first.
The guy who's up in the fairway.
Right. Right. It's only difference when it crossed the margin of the hazard and kept going out, like on number 9 at Eagle Eye.
It doesn't matter either way.
Doesn't matter.
No, I understand, but in his scenario, that ball that went in the water is closer to the green.
Right.
So the other
To the
guy's got
flag.
to walk up 175 yards in his pitching wedge to the green before I can hit my driver again from the tee box.
Well,
Kyle, what the rule says,
Got an option of dropping it there.
yeah, but what the rule says is when it becomes known that the original ball is not to be played as it lies. It doesn't say if it has to be. It says when it becomes known.
and the player is required to play a ball as nearly as possible at the spot from which the original ball was last played.
Right.
So it's an and statement. So it's not just one or the other. It has to be both. And so under the lateral water hazard rule, the player has options. But I think John, going back to your question, I mean, if you just said, yeah, just go ahead and play it, that's fine. But when you say that, you waive your right to waive or
Recall.
to
I forgot
recall
the
a shot.
If it was out of bounds, that'd have been a whole different story. If then it's broken in.
Right. If it's out of bounds,
Gotta
then
go back.
that person that hit it out of bounds has the honor is next to play. I talked to Jeannie about this one last year or 2 years ago when it happened. So I'm like 99.9% that that's positive. So, but it is an and statement. So it has to do with the fact that under a situation where the player has an option, they do not have the honor in that case. And then this here just says that the player does play out of turn. The opponent may immediately require the player to cancel the stroke and then play in the correct order. But however, once they lose their right to recall that once they either hit another shot or another shot from that player is played. So that they lose that right once another stroke happens, whether it's them themselves or the other player.
Or this director who makes a concession to allow him to play. Right? So whether the player makes a stroke of the ball,
right,
the one to hit in the water, or his opponent makes a concession to allow him to play, in which case he has no right to recall.
Right. Yep. Correct.
Have you guys ever had anybody recall a shot? And you have?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Girls.
All the girls? Yeah. And they knew the rule to do that?
Yes. And she was correct.
You talking about a game girl or?
And what was it?
Was it a tee? Was
No,
it a
tee violation or?
One was on the green putting, one was off the edge of the green, was going to chip in. They were on number 8 at Forest Acres West. And the player played. They didn't ask each other if they were away. I was standing below and right of the green on the approach. And player A asked me to come up. So I walked up before she played her shot. She said, I believe I'm away, not her. And asked me to go look at where she played her shot from. I did. We measured them out. She was away about 1.5 feet. So she recalled the chip shot that ended up just inches from the hole. And made her chip again, in which case she sculled the shot. You know, when she had to hit, it wasn't her turn, but when it did become her turn to play, she sculled the shot, probably out of anger.
So is that a placement or is it a
She might have been trying to hit you.
Yeah. I was standing on the other side of the green.
If you know the exact spot, then
If you know the exact spot, it's a place.
Right.
if you're not sure where it is, then you look it out.
So drop the general area.
Yeah, but I don't know, wouldn't that be covered by when you're required to play a ball from the place it was last played?
Well, I think this situation was different. This is just
Recall match.
yeah, just a straight recall and match play. So these players were just on the green One was closer and chipped first or putted first.
Chipped. It was off the front.
I know that I don't remember the exact situation, but I know in one of the rules classes I went to, or a book that maybe it was that Rules of Golf Illustrated book. It was in there that something happened with Annika Sorensen in a match, and her opponent chipped the ball in and hit this incredible shot, but she was actually closer to the hole. Person hit the shot, so she made her replay it, and obviously didn't chip it in again.
That happened in the Solheim Cup.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then another question that people frequently ask, or I know was asked at the rules classes that I went to, is when we're talking about playing from the wrong team ground. So in match play, I don't know if that's in this, maybe it is, but in match play, the player can play from the wrong team ground. But that player has the ability to have that shot recalled. But in some case, they may play from the wrong team ground, and they may not want to recall that shot, because if I play from the tee that's 100 yards farther back, I'm going to say it. Great drive, man. I'm going to go up and play from the right tee here. So it's not that. That's kind of one weird thing about match play, is that you can play from the wrong tee. It's not a penalty. However, you can have the shot recalled if you'd like.
In that case, if you let him hit from 100 yards back and you walked up to the right tee, is he allowed to play or he has to play the shot he hit from that tee?
He has to play.
Yeah, that ball's in play.
He has to play it.
Even though it's the wrong tee.
Yep.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Well, I mean, that's like it was bad.
Yeah.
In the smiling, but it's too late.
It's especially when we have morning and afternoon matches. Sometimes we'll change the tee markers. We'll move them up, move them back. That's when you've got to be really careful, because that happened to me at Point of Woods last year with a match. Sean Such teed off from where we had and there were tee markers there, just different color. Teed off from the back tees on one of the ones along the woods there, and I wasn't paying as good attention as I should have. So Sean Such tees off, and then then his opponent realizes that, hey, these aren't the right tee markers. We're like 50 yards up. So I said, well, he gets a tee up from 50 yards further up. So Sean is playing his tee ball where he teed off from 50 yards back. So
if he dumps his tee shot and he's not up to where he should have teed it, you can still say you're away.
Yeah.
Before you tee off.
Yeah.
Did we have the tee markers out there from the course?
I
thought we pulled them there.
At Point of Woods?
Yeah, I thought they pulled them for us.
I think they may have put some back because of the limited number of play we had. That it was like they're not.
Probably the second day.
Yeah.
Oh well.
My faux pas.
Live and learn.
It's back to the referee.
Back to the referee not paying as close of attention as he should have.
Well, and that's in there. I just found 34-3/7 or something, and where you are not. It's not mandatory that you say anything, but it says you should.
Yeah, you should.
If you observe anything. Way to go, Craig.
I know.
Maybe that was just the over-aggressive tournament director that wanted to move tees all around.
Yeah, like you.
Which I like to do that.
Because
I think it's boring to play the same tees. So I usually do move them. You know that. But I usually like to move them for every round so that they're different.
Plum Hollow, they don't get rid of the divots.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember the
Part 3 of our
number 5 at Plum Hollow?
Was it 5? That's the one hitting
We
the
took the tee markers and pulled them back over on 16 on the white box.
Yeah,
so
right.
Get the corner.
You had to get the ground screw and mow down all the high grass because you couldn't really, you couldn't see over. You couldn't see above the. You couldn't see the green if you were.
I think we played 3 groups like that, and Hartman said we got to put them back. he wanted to move them.
Well, how do you change the course?
We didn't change the course. We played
the
from
course. You changed the
The
tee
tee
box.
I know, but if 3 groups.
You can in match
Oh,
play.
match play.
Match
Okay.
play. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, stroke play, no, we would never do it.
No.
If we did that, that would be a problem. But
Yeah.
match play, you can.
You're all
you
playing the
change
same
between
course.
every-
Right.
Okay.
change them between every group if you like.
Right.
Yeah, we changed 14 as well to part 3.
Yeah.
We put it up over.
14 is what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
we
fine.
moved it
Well,
over.
that's where we had to
11.
mow down the grass,
Yep.
14, yeah.
We had to mow some down at 62 because that white tee wasn't being used up there.
Okay.
It was right at the top of the hill. And just had to clean it up. And then the next day we used that same tee box for 50.
Okay.
Hartman has a diverse sense of humor when it comes to those sometimes.
Yes, he does.
He's got to keep it interesting somehow. Dealing with all you guys year after year, I mean, gosh, cut him a break. All right. Rule 10 here, key decisions. All right, so now we're going to get into any questions from order of play. All right, so Rule 2 is dedicated specifically to match play. So here, again, really, we all know this, but the match is played over a stipulated round, unless otherwise decreed by the committee. So for us, that's 18 holes is a stipulated round. If we were to have 9-hole matches, we would need to put that in the rule sheet for the event and say that the stipulated round is 9 holes and not 18 holes.
Unless you have weather issues, you can still do the 9-hole within a weather, right, without being in the rule sheet, as long as you announce the participants.
Yeah, you have to announce it.
Yeah.
But you couldn't start it being an 18-hole and then midway through the round say we're actually going to change to 9. You have to do it prior
to the round start.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And then here we talked about this before, but the game is played by holes, so it's not score, but just by holes. And in handicap match, we know in regular match, gross match, but in a handicap match, the lower net score wins the hole and retains honor.
That's a hard thing to do with the net players too. You have to talk to them. Oftentimes the net players don't, whoever's got the lower ball is going to play. They don't think about the net score for the hole.
Right.
They think about who scored on the hole.
But they know they won the hole, don't they?
They should. But remember, it's match play, so they don't have the card.
Right.
Tommy, since you're involved with it, what do you do if one of those matches goes to extra holes? So you finish 18 holes, the match is even, square, all square. First playoff hole is number 1. Do the strokes start accumulating? Do they start getting their strokes again wherever they fall, as if it was another 18-hole match?
Only if the intent is 18 holes. If it's going to be sudden death or something, we try to look at their handicap for, say, the first 3 holes and adjust for there. So you try to anticipate and not try and look ahead like, okay, we're going to play a Holman match of 18 holes.
Okay.
Typically, don't we do a 3-hole aggregate playoff?
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh, you do a 3-hole aggregate
We do a
playoff.
3-hole aggregate
They
because
don't do sudden
because of
death on
that.
that.
That's for stroke play, right?
No, that's for.
Now, how do you do
Oh,
it? No,
sorry.
I'm talking about match play.
Sorry, yes, sorry.
So in match play,
Yeah, disregard what I
In
said.
match play, we
in match
continue, I think
play-
we just continue with the holes as handicap.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry.
okay, so I'll use Westerns because I know there's first hole is a high handicap hole, but number 2 is like the second handicap hole. So if we get through the first hole
Then that
square,
person would get a
then
stroke.
they would get a
on
stroke
number
on the
2.
second
Yeah.
hole. Okay,
Just as though they were playing a new 18-hole
Okay.
match.
all right.
Like I say, we only try and look at 3 holes at a time. We don't try and look at the whole thing. And the stroke play, yeah, there's an aggregate that we use, and we average that out. It gets weird percentages. Believe me, you end up with a winner in the 3 holes because of that usually.
Okay.
0.2 strokes.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of them less than that.
Guaranteed winner.
Yeah.
And And then in the handicapping system, they actually address that, and they try to prevent courses from ranking their first or their 10th hole as the most difficult or one of the most difficult, because they don't want that to happen for a player to get a stroke in a playoff situation like that. Now, I mean, if it is the hardest, and it's the hardest for sure, I mean, they can still do it, but typically they'll say move that one up a little bit so that it doesn't affect the outcome of matches as much, or give an advantage to a player just because they have different handicap. All right, we talked about this, but the state of the match is expressed in how many holes up, all square, and with so many holes to play. So we're never talking about how many holes down. It's just whoever's up is how we want to announce the match. And then Dormy here, we'll pass over Dormy. I think we covered that pretty well.
Just pass it.
Okay, and then a hole is halved. We all know when a hole is halved. A player has holed out and his opponent has been left with a stroke for a half. If the player who's already holed out subsequently incurs a penalty, the hole is halved. So if we go to decision 2-2/1, this here talks about advice. So the following is an example of the application of the second paragraph of Rule 2-2. In a match, A is holed out. B, A's opponent is preparing to putt for a half. A gives B advice as to his line of putt. A would normally lose the hole for a breach of Rule 8-1 advice, but Rule 2-2 becomes operative in these circumstances, and the hole is halved. So that, yeah.
The preferred terminology for a halved hole is going to be tied next year.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay. That's good to know. I guess that probably makes more sense to the majority of golfers. All right.
Does tie go to the runner?
Tie goes to the runner. I don't know.
Yes.
How would,
In baseball.
how would that work? In golf?
I don't know.
They've got to come up with a new rule.
A good official, as Nick would say, would not have a match end in a tie. They would make sure that doesn't happen by putting out a penalty or something of that nature. It's like if you're reffing a basketball game, it's the official's first and foremost responsibility for it not to go into overtime. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
Here, so it says, so again here, you can have the match end in the tie, or you can have it keep going and play until there's a winner. So the majority of our matches we do keep playing. And then for some of our other matches that we don't have officials for, we do have half points. Those are more like Ryder Cup style or Solheim Cup style matches. The one thing when we are extending the match, it is important, and you'll hear this when you're working our match play events. But if you think your match is gonna extend, it's always a good idea to give us a heads up on hole 17. So that we can start preparing and making arrangements with the golf course to clear number one. Because typically we'll go back to number one, but we also have the ability to use any hole based on the discretion of the course. So, but it will be the same for everyone within that group. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be, but typically it is.
Match play.
Yeah, but. Yeah, so there might be a setup where the 18th hole is really close to number 10 and not number 1, and we may just go on to number 10, provided that we don't have tee times or other matches going through there. All right, a player may concede a match at any time prior to the start or conclusion of the match. So this is a match. So anytime, if the player wants to just give up, they can do that. And the player may concede a hole at any time prior to the start or conclusion of that hole. And then the player may concede his opponent's next stroke at any time, provided that the opponent's ball is at rest. So if the opponent, let's say that I hit my tee shot OB, and Craig it's a par 3, and I hit my second shot after Craig hits, or let's see how this. Let's say that I hit it OB, and then Craig hits a shot to like a foot. I can just say, as soon as Craig's ball comes to rest, that I give up. Yeah, you win the hole. But if I see Craig's ball going to the hole and I say that it's conceded before it stops, and that's not an official concession. So it has to be when the player's ball is at rest,
Or before he strikes it.
or yeah, exactly, or before he hits it.
Yeah, you can do that out of bounds and
Right.
concede the hole before he ever tees off.
Exactly. And then a concession may not be declined or withdrawn. So once it's said, it can't be pulled.
It's the toughest one to get through to kids.
Mhm.
And the juniors, they have the most difficult time with that.
Yeah. Right. And you know, this could be because they may in their mind have calculated their opponent's strokes wrong, and let's say that they thought that they were putting for bogey, but it was really a putt for par. If they say it's good, even if they find out that oh, that was actually for 4.
Getting to say it's good.
But you can ask the strokes how many strokes the players taken.
Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, Tom, that's a great point. The player can always ask, how many strokes the other or their opponent has taken, and that player is obligated to tell them and answer that.
Truthfully.
Right, truthfully. And if they do it, if they don't answer it, we'll cover this in a little bit. But there's consequences for that.
Kyle, if you're playing a team event, and let's say that I'm 8 feet away and Madeline's my partner, and she's 6 feet away on the same line, and the other team says, "John, pick it up. That's good." I can't hit the ball. I'm not allowed to hit the ball, right? If I hit the ball, what happens? What kind of penalty is there?
So there's a decision.
If it helps Madeline,
Exactly.
then you're both out of the hole.
GQ for the whole.
Well, no, it'd just be if your putt was conceded and your score ended up tying the hole.
Let's say I was putting for 8 and they gave it to me. Madeline's putting for a 4. And I'm going to putt it to help her with the line. So she sees the line, but you can see my putt. She's not allowed. I can't putt that, right?
No.
But she can putt it. But what happens if I putt it anyway?
Then you're assisting her.
Right.
And she's going to be out of the hole.
She's out
of the hole.
There's a decision.
Yeah.
Well, his 8 would count.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, my score would count.
your score counts.
But hers
If
would
it's
not.
match play, then you could.
Gotcha.
If your 8 has the hole, you've lost the hole. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Did this change or something? I thought that like conceding a hole, you had to hit a ball on that hole first before you could concede the hole.
You can prior to you can concede a hole.
That rule has changed because it wasn't that way before.
You can concede a hole prior to even starting a hole.
That's why I say it's changed.
I don't think it's changed. No.
Because I know there was a time when it wasn't that way.
Yep. So JW 2-4/6, page 42. Putting out after concession of stroke. Rule 2-4 does not cover the question of whether a player may putt out after his next stroke has been conceded. A player incurs no penalty for holing out in such circumstances. However, if the act would be of assistance to a partner in a 4-ball or a best ball match, the partner is in equity disqualified for the hole.
Okay. So I can putt it out if I'm playing by myself in a match, but if I'm helping my partner, then I can't do that. Correct. Okay. Correct. Thanks.
Yeah, and a lot of times, that would be a good strategy.
You can see my putt.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So and I actually had that situation happen. We were doing an event at my old job, and it was a team event, 4-ball event, and a Team USA, they had that exact same thing happen, and I was an observer, and stupid, and I saw that happen, and I saw them get an advantage, and I said, you can't do that. When I should have just sat back and said nothing. And then the guy from the South Carolina Golf Association, who was the main referee, basically calmed everyone down. But so Team USA did that in order to give them the line, and then Team Canada did the same thing. And I said something before or after they did it, but before Team Canada played, but it was too late at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I wasn't a referee, I couldn't do anything about it. But I thought I could.
John posed to you a question this past week, only because it was asked of me, and I don't know whether that was a legal game. The ladies in our area play a game where we play against 3 other clubs. It's match play. So I'm playing in a foursome with you 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm playing against each of you. So if this is a legal game, I don't know. But okay, so we're playing that.
It's complicated.
It wasn't me playing. I was walking to the range. So this other lady comes up to me and says, I have a question. I'm like, she thinks I'm the rules official. I said, what's your question? She said, I just got conceded a putt over here. And she said, now they don't want, they're saying, no, I can't concede. And I said, well,
The other two
and
players.
I'm not realizing what they're
playing.
playing yet. I said, once you've conceded something, it's done. It's conceded.
You're playing
But-
3 separate matches.
Right, well, that's what I wasn't aware of that point. And Kyle came back and it was like, wow, so I already have that all written down because this
So
is
the
one
player who
lady who
concedes
asked
it,
me.
that hole's conceded.
That
player
holds
C and D,
complete, right, that
he
holds
still has to
complete
play
for that
These-
match.
Just that
But
one
you still
player,
have
right?
2 other matches that are ongoing.
Yeah, because that's what ended up happening. The one lady said, well, you conceded, and she picked it up. But these 2 said, hey, we still had a chance at this.
Right.
So that was really
That's
screwed
tricky.
up.
And if the player B who conceded the hole picks the ball up and throws it back to Madeline, Madeline gets to place it for C and D. But if Madeline picks it up, then she gets a stroke penalty for C and D, right?
Right.
Typically what happens in that, because I've played in some of those, the group kind of agrees before they start, if we concede one, it's conceded for everybody. That's how we've done it, like in the Michigan districts. That's how they've done it. Because it's match play, right? So they kind of said, one says it's good, it's all good.
Wait, is there a consensus that you have to ask everyone to do it?
Yeah, before you tee off, that's what they do. And so that they don't have one's good, the other ones aren't.
Well, so then if I'm playing in a match against you, and then
Lynn.
so we're all playing, and then
Right.
if you want to give me a putt, do you have to ask Lynn and Jeff before you say it's
They
good?
all kind of look at each other. What they do is they all look and go, that's good. And they go, yeah. And they,
I think that's fine, but
Yeah.
they couldn't say if one person says it's good for all of them. I think there would need
no,
to
but
be
that's,
consensus.
that's how it's not a sanctioned
Right.
event, but it's the district golf league,
Right.
right? And that's what they play. They play
Mm-hmm.
3 matches against, everybody's playing a match against everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't-
Because it's hard to do.
Right.
You know?
But that's a legitimate game in golf.
Mm-hmm.
The USGA recognizes that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's rule 30 or 31.
It is 30.
30?
Yeah. So it's 3 ball, best ball, 4 ball.
That's good to know.
All right.
And they're all match players too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 31 all stroke play.
Much easier to be stroke play.
All right. Making a claim here. Doubt if you have doubt as to how to proceed. So in match play, if doubt or dispute arises between the players, the player may make a claim. If no duly authorized representative of the committee is available within a reasonable time, the players must continue the match without delay. And then the committee must get back to that player only if the claim was made in a timely manner. And we'll go over what a timely manner means. And if the player making the claim has notified his opponent at the time. that he is making a claim and wants a ruling. So that's a key phrase there, is you need to say something along the lines of, I'm making a claim and I want a ruling. But using the word claim is important. And then and they need to know what the facts are on which the claim is being made. And so I want to make a claim because I don't think that you can take 3 club lengths from a cart path. So it has to have that second part as well. The claim is considered to have been made in a timely manner if, upon discovery of circumstances giving rise to the claim, the player makes his claim before any player in the match plays from the next teeing ground. And in the case of the last hole, before all players leave the putting green, or when the circumstances giving rise to the claim are discovered after all the players in the match have left the putting green of the final hole before the result of the match has been officially announced.
Tyler, you're saying if you say, I want to make a claim because I don't think we did that correctly.
What? You gotta have the circumstances.
That's what I'm asking. You
Yeah.
need to be more specific.
Yeah, I would say that you would want them to be more specific, so that we don't say.
I don't think we did that right.
We did that right, and
I don't think we did that.
And then we go and we find out that what we were really talking about was on our third shot. We found out from the official that on the second shot we broke another rule. So we have to know exactly what we're looking at. So maybe it doesn't need to be the exact wording of what it is, but there needs to be a reference as to what shot or what action we're giving review. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah.
Can't you say, I don't think we did that right?
Right.
And then
we need to know what you think
what you did
right.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so a claim related to a prior hole in the match may only be considered by the committee if it's based on facts previously unknown to the player and that he had been given wrong information by an opponent. So such a claim must be made in a timely manner. So again, before a player tees off in the next hole, or in the case of the last hole, all players leaving the green. And then once the result of the match has been officially announced, a claim may not be considered by the committee unless it is satisfied that the claim is based on facts that were previously unknown to the player, or the player making the claim had been giving wrong information by an opponent, or the opponent knew that he was giving wrong information. Let's see, does it have to be all 3 of these things? I think it has to be all 3 of these, correct? Yeah, so it needs to. All 3 of these things need to happen. So once the match has been announced, the only time that we can go back and change something is that if there's things that came about that we didn't know about before, and that the player was given wrong information, and the opponent gave them wrong information intentionally.
It has to satisfy all 3.
I think it does.
It says and, it doesn't say or.
So in our case, we usually have an official.
I mean, this is
Referee,
after
right?
after the
I think it's
match has been.
any of those three would be a qualifier to consider a claim, I think, right?
I don't think so.
There's got to be an
Because
or
it's-
between
because
each
there's
one of
no or
those. Any one of those three
Because it's
is-
after
right.
the match has already been resolved or has been scored. I mean, if this was before the match had been or the competition had been closed, then I think it's different.
Right.
Let's see, 2.
It's funny because they're individual statements,
Can't
but
even
there
write
is
a
an
poll
and
and trying to figure out
between the second and third.
Did we do it correctly out there?
Yeah, but this one down here says and between 2 and 3.
All right, so here we go. 2. Well, I think this might be it. 2-5/11, page 52. So wrong information given after play of last hole, claim made after result announced. So in a match, A and B came to the last hole all square. After completion of the hole, A stated that he scored 9, and B stated that he had scored 8, making B the winner. 1 up. The result was recorded by the committee. A few minutes later, a spectator told A that B had scored a 9 in the last hole. B reviewed the hole and acknowledged that he had made a mistake and that his actual score was 9. What is the ruling? The match stands as played with B the winner under Rule 2-5. No claim may be considered after the result of the match is announced unless wrong information has been given knowingly.
He didn't.
So
He was not trying to be deceptive. He just didn't know what his score was.
So that right there says is a combination of 2 and 3.
Right.
And 1 because we found out about it from, or I guess little I on our sheet here, but we found about it from that spectator.
Yeah, but the problem is we don't know that the spectator gave us facts that weren't already in evidence. The spectator came up with a statement. How can we verify the spectator? We can't. Not relates back to the player. So the player didn't intentionally give this information. He just didn't count his strokes appropriately. So now that's the reason that's going to stand.
Right.
But this really comes to play where we don't have a referee on every group, right?
Yes.
We have a referee on every group. It's made.
Then the referee's decision is
And
final.
some of
He's
your
a
net
representative.
deals where we might have 3 holes, this is where it's going to kind of come into play.
Right.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, because if we have someone assigned to a match, there's really not a claim being made. It's just if you have a question, you're going to ask the referee, and the referee's going to say what's going on.
The referee's going to make a decision, and his decision's final. The player can't question his decision. That's just verse.
And then in stroke play, you got 3-3.
There was a decision there, but the player wanted to go back to the committee.
No. Referee's
The final authority is that he's empowered by the committee. The player may not like the ruling, but he's going to deliver it.
One deal. All right, and then here are a couple notes. Player may disregard a breach of the rules by his opponent, provided there is no agreement by the sides to waive the rule. So if a player, drops the ball 3 club lengths from the car path, the player is allowed to not say anything, and they can continue on, and there's no issue with that. And then again, if you're not the referee in the match, you just let everything play out. And then if they do make a claim, that's when you jump in there and say something. And then here also it says in match play, there's no rule 3-3, so you can't play 2 balls. You have to decide what you want to do and go. And then once you decide, if the other player doesn't think that's right, they can make a claim. And then the rules committee will determine who's right and who's wrong. But they can't play 2 balls in match play. All right, 2-5/2 procedure for a valid claim. So this just talks about how we go about making a claim. So for a claim to be valid, the person making the claim must notify his opponent that he is making a claim or wants a ruling, and the facts of the situation. He must do so within the time required by Rule 2-5. For example, Rule 16-1E prohibits putting from a stance astride an extension of the line, a putt behind the ball. In a match between A and B, if A putts from a stance astride an extension of the line and B states that is not allowed, you are penalized, or I'm making a claim because of that stroke. The committee should consider the claim there. So I guess when that kind of gets back to your question there, because he said that is not allowed, you are penalized. That's saying it's referencing that exact moment. So as long as we know what moment they're talking about or why that player thinks they're penalized, then we can make a ruling. Statements by B such as "I'm not sure that's allowed" or "I don't think you can do that" do not by themselves constitute a valid claim, because each statement does not contain the notice of the claim or that he wants a ruling and the facts of the situation. All right, so the general penalty in match play is typically loss of hole, except here's a list of one-stroke penalties, and you can see it has a date 2012 on it. So there may be some on there that have changed, but I think only there's one about a ball moving on the putting green. I think that might be the only one that.
Yeah, 18-2B, ball moving after, yes.
18-2B.
And so that one, well, that's still a penalty?
Which only applies on the putting green, though.
Right.
Accidental movement only applies on the putting green.
Only on the putting green, yeah. All right, so all these here are listed are one-stroke penalties. So one common misconception is that everything in match play is a loss of hole penalty. We talked about the state of the match adjustments, but here are some one-stroke penalties that also are not loss of hole. So one of them we talked about moving the ball in play. That's just a one-stroke penalty. All right, key decisions in Rule 2. All right.
Listed in 2-6.
It's not in there, no.
Yeah, right there.
It'll be and when I send it out, you'll have it.
Yeah, it's in the handout.
Yeah, it's just a copy of some other resource site. All right, rule 9. Get through this one really quick. Information as the strokes taken. So we talked about this a little before, but in match play, the opponent is entitled to ascertain from the player during the play of the hole the number of strokes he has taken, and after the play of the hole, the number of strokes taken on the hole just completed. So that the player that gets asked that is required to answer that question truthfully. If they intentionally do not answer that, then they're going to lose the hole. So a player must not give wrong information to his opponent. If a player gives wrong information, he loses the hole. A player is deemed to have given wrong information if he fails to inform his opponent as soon as practicable, which we'll talk about here in a second, that he has incurred a penalty, unless he was obviously proceeding under a rule involving a penalty and this was observed by his opponent. He corrects the mistake before his opponent makes his next stroke. So, for example, for that last one, the player may have taken unplayable ball penalty, and maybe he didn't tell his opponent right away, but as long as he tells his opponent before his opponent makes his next stroke, he's not going to lose the hole for giving wrong information.
Suppose he's on one side of the fairway over the tree line, and my opponent or she is over on the right hand side. Am I supposed to yell?
So that's actually a great question, and there's a decision on that. So it talks about what is as soon as practicable. Here, the phrase is purposely broad so as to allow for consideration of the circumstances in each situation, especially the proximity of the player to his opponent. Thus, informing the opponent as soon as practicable of the penalty incurred does not, in all circumstances, mean that the player must do so before the opponent plays his next stroke. So in your case, it may be 50, 60 yards away. You don't need to yell across the fairway and say, I'm taking a penalty here. But as soon as you do get closer together, you need to say that.
Suppose my opponent says, well, if you had told me that, I wouldn't go in for the green and put the ball in the pond, I would have laid up. Doesn't matter.
I mean, if it's 50, 60 yards and you can yell it and it's fine, I mean, I guess, yeah, do it. But I mean, let's say, you're over on the other side of the hill and you'd have to walk up to the top of the hill and then you might not even be able to see the player to do that. In that case, just tell him when you see him next.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. True. All right.
But that is as soon as practical is related to stroke play, not necessarily match play. So that's a stroke play. chemistry.
Well, part of it there is in match play, the referee's keeping the score.
Marker as soon as possible in stroke play.
It's in match play.
Yeah, but
But match play, the
It's
referee's
under-
keeping the
under
score,
B,
so.
the letter I.
yeah.
And hopefully that word goes away in the next rule.
Right, practicable.
It's,
Yeah.
But 9-2, is a match play rule.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So Jeff made a good point too. I mean, this really won't happen when we have a referee, because the referee is going to tell the player that your opponent just got a penalty, to make sure, or once that happens, the referee is going to communicate that as soon as practical. So this is more when just 2 people or 4 people are out there just playing a match on their own. If they need to make a claim, this gives them the latitude to do that. All right, so going back, just a player gives incorrect information during the play of the hole regarding the number of strokes taken and does not correct the mistake before his opponent makes the next stroke. And then the player gives incorrect information regarding the number of strokes taken to complete a hole, and this affects the opponent's understanding of the results of the hole unless he corrects the mistake before any player makes a stroke from the next team ground, or in the case of the last hole of the match before all players leave the putting green. So the player would get penalized if they don't correct it. In all 3 of these cases, they would lose the hole, provided that a claim was made. But if there's no claim made, then nothing happens. And if you're a referee, like again, we're not going to have these situations come up, because we're going to inform the players, when penalties happen. So this is more just, again, if a player does make a claim, and it is valid and done in a timely manner, their opponent will lose the hole if their opponent gave wrong information and did not correct it. Okay, then this last part is important here. A player is given wrong information, even if it is due to the failure to include a penalty that he did not know he had incurred. It is the player's responsibility to know the rules. But again,
So if he can't count, he's absolved. But if he doesn't know the rules, it's a problem.
well, I think so. Not necessarily.
Rules of golf.
Not necessarily. So if he can't count and he doesn't fix it, he's still deemed to have given wrong information.
Okay.
But in either case, the opponent has to make a claim. So, the opponent might know that it's a penalty or a 1-stroke penalty to take relief from a lateral water hazard. But if the player doesn't calculate that when they're counting their strokes, the player can make a claim to say that you gave me wrong information, knowing that they're going to win the hole that way.
Well, how does this square with, what is it, 2-5? I thought it said that the player had to know that he gave wrong information.
So that was after the result of the match had been determined.
Oh, okay, but it could apply in this situation, right? A guy gave wrong information. The player didn't. The player didn't realize until the end that he had received wrong information. That rule says that once the match is announced, it doesn't matter if the opponent didn't know that he was given wrong information.
Correct. So in that case, he wouldn't be able to make a claim, but he could make a claim before the match was completed. Or, well, sorry, I guess before the match was completed, or before a stroke was made on the next hole, or in the case of the last hole.
Okay, so in that, so it is wrong information in a timely claim, but not in a claim after the match has results have been announced.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's a good question. All right, couple key decisions here. All right, we're gonna, what time is it? It's 3 o'clock. All right. We are good to go. We'll cover briefly 34. I mean, really 34 it just talks about what the committee does, but we'll cover it. It's pretty short next week, and then we'll also talk about rules 18, 19, 6, and 33.
Are we on next week?
Yes.
It is next week.
Yeah.
We got 2 more weeks.
Two more weeks. Yep. 2 more weeks.
It'll be a 6-hour session.
We'll be done. So. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out. Good discussion.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the info.
Kyle?
Thanks, Kyle.
On that
All right.
part where the player hits the ball into the water,